The night was cold and quiet when Ethan Cole came home. He had just returned from a 6-month mission on Mars, and all he wanted was a shower, a hot meal, and a long sleep. The stars above his cabin looked peaceful, but something about the air felt strange, heavier, almost humming. As he walked up the steps to his wooden porch, he noticed the door was slightly open. That stopped him. He never left his door open. Ethan froze, listening carefully. Only the sound of the wind. No footsteps, no voices. Still, his heartbeat quickened. He reached for his flashlight and quietly pushed the door wider. The living room was dark. The power was out again. Not unusual in this part of the woods. But there was something else. The smell. It wasn't smoke or dust. It smelled like hot metal. And honey, he called out softly. Hello? Anyone here? No answer. He stepped inside. His boots creaked on the wooden floor. Every sound seemed louder than normal. He passed the living room, moving toward the kitchen. That was when he heard it. A faint humming like electricity running through wires. Then he saw a faint blue light flickering behind the kitchen door. He pushed it open and froze. A girl stood by his counter, but she wasn't human. Her skin shimmered silver blue, like moonlight on water. Her hair floated slightly, as if the air itself was alive around her. Her eyes glowed soft white without pupils. She looked delicate, fragile even. But the air around her buzzed with energy. In her trembling hands, she held his mug, his favorite one, the one that said "World's Tiredest Engineer." For a second, neither of them moved. Ethan's mind raced. Was this a prank, a dream, some kind of hologram? His instincts told him to grab a weapon, but something about her eyes stopped him. They weren't angry. They were scared. She spoke first. Her voice was quiet, broken. Please, don't make a sound. Ethan's throat went dry. Who are you? What are you doing in my house? She shook her head quickly. No time. They're coming. Who's coming? The girl stepped closer. Her skin flickered like a dying light bulb. I didn't mean to come here. I ran. I hid. They found me again. You must not. A loud crack echoed outside. The cabin windows rattled. Ethan ducked instinctively, heart pounding. What was that? She looked toward the forest. Hunters. He followed her gaze through the kitchen window. In the distance, a strange red glow moved between the trees. Not fire, not headlights. It was floating. Searching. Ethan whispered. What are those things? She looked at him, eyes wide. Machines. They smell fear. They kill. That was enough to send a chill down his spine. Ethan moved to the back door and locked it. Okay, listen. I don't know who you are or what's happening, but if someone's hunting you, we need to hide. She seemed surprised by his words, almost confused that he wasn't attacking her. Slowly she nodded. You would help me? Yeah, he said, I'm human. That's what we do. A sudden flash outside cut the darkness, like lightning, but sharper, bluer. A sound like metal scraping against stone filled the night. Ethan grabbed his old toolkit from under the counter, pulling out a wrench, the only thing close to a weapon he had. The girl's eyes widened as the walls of the cabin began to hum. They found us. Ethan looked around. We need to move, now. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Wait! Her glowing fingers left faint trails of light on his skin. You don't understand. If they find me, they find you. They destroy everything. Ethan stared at her, breathing hard. Then let's make sure they don't. For a second she hesitated. Then she nodded again, and together they ran toward the basement door. The lights flickered, the floor trembled, and a low mechanical roar echoed outside. As they reached the basement steps, Ethan glanced back toward the kitchen. The coffee mug still sat on the counter, steam rising from it, as if time itself had paused there. He thought, I just wanted to come home. Now he was running for his life with a glowing alien girl who claimed the sky was hunting her. When they reached the bottom of the steps, she turned toward him, her face pale in the dark. They can't see us for long, but they can hear. Ethan switched off his flashlight and whispered, Then we stay quiet. Outside, the forest exploded with light. Red beams swept across the trees. The sound of engines filled the air. The girl pressed a hand against her chest, trembling. They won't stop. Not until I'm gone, Ethan whispered back. Then we'll make sure you're not. The floor shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. For a moment, everything was silent. Then a voice, mechanical, hollow, and cold, echoed through the night. Subject located. Prepare for extraction. The alien girl's eyes filled with terror. Ethan clenched the wrench tighter. Whatever was happening, he knew one thing. This was no dream. And whatever those things were outside, they had just found them. The cabin was shaking. Dust fell from the ceiling as the red light from outside flashed through every crack and window. Ethan and the alien girl hid in the basement, crouched behind an old metal cabinet. The air smelled of smoke and burning plastic. Ethan's heart pounded so loudly he was sure the machines could hear it. He didn't know what these hunters were, but their sound was like nothing he had ever heard before. Part machine, part animal. The girl sat beside him, breathing fast, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "They are scanning for heat," she whispered. "If we move, they'll sense us." He stayed still, trying to think. Every instinct told him to run, but her calm voice kept him frozen. "How many of them?" He whispered. "Too many," she said softly. "They never stop until they find the target." For a long, tense minute, the sound of the drones filled the air. Then slowly, it faded away. The ground stopped shaking. Silence returned, heavy and unnatural. Ethan exhaled, trying to steady his shaking hands. "Okay," he said, barely above a whisper. "You're going to tell me everything now. Who are you? What do they want?" She didn't answer at first. Her gaze drifted toward the small window, where a faint red glow still pulsed in the sky. Then quietly she said, "My name is Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated. "All right, Lyra, you're not from Earth, are you?" She looked at him and gave a small, tired smile. "No, I am not. I came from far away, from a place your people once tried to talk to." Ethan frowned. "You mean space signals? The ones NASA sent out?" She nodded. "Your kind sent music, voices, and numbers into the stars. You wanted to say hello. But not everyone who listens wants peace." Her words sent a chill through him.
"What do you mean?"
Lyra closed her eyes, remembering. "We heard your message. My people, the Kalari, studied it. We loved the sound of human hope. But another race heard it too, the Varric. They are conquerors. They take what they want and they destroy what they can't use. Your signal told them where to look." Ethan stared at her, speechless. "You're saying Earth invited monsters?" She opened her glowing eyes. "Yes, and now they are coming." He felt his stomach twist. The thought of aliens coming to invade Earth was something out of a bad movie. But this girl wasn't acting. Her fear was real. Her trembling voice made it real. Ethan rubbed his face. "Why did you come here then? Why are they hunting you?" Lyra's hands shook. She pulled something from a pouch around her neck, a small glowing crystal no bigger than a coin. It pulsed with soft blue light. "This," she said, "holds the proof. The Varric planned to burn your world from orbit. But I escaped with this information. If I can reach your planet's main communication hub, I can stop them from finding your exact coordinates." Ethan looked at the crystal. "You're saying you can save Earth?" She hesitated. "I can try, but they know I'm here. If they capture me, they'll find your world anyway." Outside, thunder rolled but it wasn't thunder. It was the sound of engines. The hunters were circling back. Ethan stood up. "Then we can't stay here." Lyra looked up at him, surprised. "You would help me again?" He nodded. "You're in my kitchen, drinking my coffee, and you're being chased by flying murder robots." "I think that makes us a team." She blinked, confused by his humor, then smiled faintly. "Humans are strange." "Yeah," Ethan said, grabbing his old backpack. "But we don't give up easy." They slipped out through a back hatch, moving quietly through the trees. The night air was thick with mist and static. Far above, Ethan could see faint lights moving across the sky. Ships, searching, hunting. As they climbed a ridge overlooking the forest, Lyra stopped. Her skin dimmed like a dying light bulb. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. She pressed a hand to her head. "They're tracing the crystal's energy. We can't keep it on." She took a deep breath and whispered something in her language. The crystal's glow faded, but not completely. Ethan looked at her, amazed. "How did you do that?" Lyra gave a small, sad smile. "It's part of me. I was made to protect it," he frowned. "Made?" She hesitated. "My kind were not born like yours. We were grown, built from light and code. We were meant to serve, not to feel, but I feel everything now." Ethan didn't know what to say. For the first time, he saw not an alien, but someone lost. Alone, afraid, but trying to do the right thing. He nodded slowly. Then let's keep moving. You said you need to reach the communication hub? Yes, before the sunrise. They walked through the forest as the sky turned pale. The air buzzed softly with distant hums of the enemy machines. Then, as they reached the edge of the ridge, Ethan's radio crackled to life. It wasn't supposed to. He hadn't used it in months. A strange voice spoke from it. Metallic. Cold. Ethan Cole. Return the Kalari unit. This is your final warning, Lyra froze. Her eyes widened in horror. They know your name. Ethan gripped the radio tightly, his breath caught in his throat. Whatever this was, it was no longer just her fight. It had become his. The forest was alive with danger. Every tree whispered, every shadow moved. Ethan and Lyra hurried through the mist, their boots sinking into the wet ground. Above them, red lights cut across the night sky like hungry eyes searching for prey. Ethan could still hear the cold voice from the radio in his head. Ethan Cole, return the Kalari unit. This is your final warning. He wasn't sure what scared him more, that the machines knew his name or that they called Lyra a unit. Lyra walked beside him, holding the dim crystal close to her chest. The glow was weaker now, but it still pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. They can track energy signatures, she said quietly. We must stay under the trees. Ethan nodded. How far to this communication hub? She looked up at the sky, her eyes flickering like starlight. Far, but if we follow the river north, we can reach your nearest data tower. It might send a signal strong enough. He sighed. That's about 15 miles from here. In daylight. Lyra tilted her head, confused. Is daylight bad? He chuckled, though his voice shook. When you're being hunted? Yeah, pretty bad. They kept moving. The wind carried the faint hum of engines, closer this time. Ethan stopped and crouched behind a fallen log, motioning for Lyra to do the same. A small drone hovered past, its metal body glinting faintly. Its sensors swept over the forest, leaving trails of red light through the fog. Ethan's pulse quickened. He glanced at Lyra. She was trembling, her hand covering the crystal. Stay still, he whispered. The drone paused. The air went silent. Then it turned directly toward them. Run! Ethan shouted. They bolted through the trees as the drone let out a sharp mechanical scream. Red beams sliced through the darkness, cutting through branches and bark. The ground exploded behind them as small missiles struck the earth. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her toward a rocky slope. This way. They slid down into a shallow ravine just as another blast tore through the trees above. Mud splashed across Ethan's face. He coughed, spitting out dirt, but kept moving. Lyra fell to her knees, clutching her head. They're calling to me, she whispered. Their signal. It hurts. Ethan knelt beside her, panting. You can fight it. Just focus on me, okay? Look at me. She looked up, her glowing eyes flickering weakly. You don't understand. I was built to obey them. Then disobey, he said firmly. You made it this far. That means you're stronger than they think. For a moment, the air around her shimmered. Then, slowly, her breathing steadied. The glow in her skin returned, brighter than before. Ethan smiled faintly. That's it, you're doing great. She stared at him, almost confused. Why do you help me? Your own kind might not believe you. They might fear me. He shrugged. Maybe. But I've seen enough missions to know fear's a bad reason to do nothing. The hum of more drones echoed through the valley. Ethan looked up, 5 lights this time, moving fast. They didn't have long. He spotted an old power station at the edge of the woods, its walls broken and rusted. There, he said. We can hide inside. They ran again, slipping through the torn metal door. The air inside was cold and smelled like oil and rain. Ethan shut the door quietly, then looked around for anything useful. The room was full of old wires, rusted tools, and broken panels. Perfect junk, but to an engineer, junk meant hope. He began pulling cables and circuit boards together. If I can rig an EMP pulse, he muttered, I might fry their sensors long enough to lose them. Lyra watched him curiously. You build weapons from trash? He grinned faintly. Welcome to human creativity, she tilted her head. Your species fights with heart, not machines. Maybe that's why we're still around, he said, connecting two loose wires. Sparks flashed. There. Now, if we can get them. Close enough. Outside, the sound of the drones grew louder, a swarm closing in. Ethan crouched by the window, waiting. Lyra pressed the crystal to the wall, whispering something in her language. Blue lines of light spread across the metal like veins, strengthening the structure. Nice trick, he said. It's a shield, only for a few moments, she replied. The first drone appeared in the doorway. Its red eye blinked, focusing on them. Ethan slammed his hand down on the device. Now! A burst of white light exploded through the building. The air crackled. The drones screamed and fell from the sky, their circuits fried. For a second, everything was silent again, until one of the drones twitched and sent a signal into the sky before dying. Lyra's eyes widened. They've sent our location. Ethan swore under his breath. Then we move again. They ran out the back of the power station into the cold wind. Behind them, the clouds above split open. A massive shadow moved across the stars. Lyra stopped, fear written on her glowing face. That's not a drone, she whispered. That's a warship. Ethan looked up. The ship stretched across the sky like a dark mountain, its engines burning red. He tightened his grip on the wrench in his hand. Then I guess the chase just got serious. The night sky burned red as the warship passed over the forest. Its size was beyond anything Ethan had ever imagined. Miles wide, its surface covered with black metal that shimmered like liquid glass. The sound it made was deep and low, like thunder trapped beneath the earth. Ethan and Lyra hid under the rocky edge of an old cliff, the glow from the ship lighting their faces. The air smelled of smoke and heat. They found us, Ethan whispered. Lyra shook her head weakly. Not yet. The Varric warships don't see like you do. They scan for energy, for thought. If we stay calm, silent, they might pass. Ethan tried, but calm was impossible. His hands shook. His mind screamed questions. He looked at Lyra, the strange glowing girl who had turned his quiet life upside down, and whispered, Tell me the truth now. Who are you, really? What are you hiding? Lyra didn't look at him. Her silver skin flickered like candlelight. You wouldn't believe me. He leaned closer. After everything I've seen tonight, try me. For a long time, she said nothing. Only the deep hum of the warship filled the air. Then she whispered, I wasn't supposed to exist. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Lyra touched the crystal hanging around her neck. It glowed softly. My people, the Kelari, created me as a guardian. Not flesh and blood, but light and memory. I was designed to carry something precious. Something dangerous. Ethan stared at the crystal. That thing you keep protecting? She nodded slowly. It's called the Star Key. It holds the coordinates of every world the Varric have destroyed, and every world they plan to destroy next. He felt his chest tighten, including Earth. Yes, she said softly. Your planet was added to the list 2 cycles ago. Ethan looked down, trying to process her words. So you escaped? To warn us? Lyra's eyes flickered. I escaped to change it. The Varric use my kind as living storage. They put their secrets in us, but I learned to think for myself. I broke free, and when I found your world's name, I couldn't stay silent. Her voice trembled. I thought maybe humans were still worth saving. He looked at her, at the fear and hope in her eyes, and felt something shift inside him. Then we'll stop them, he said. Together. Lyra shook her head quickly. You don't understand. They never lose. They burn planets from orbit. They turn oceans into glass. One human cannot stop them. Maybe not, Ethan said, his voice firm. But one human can fight, and maybe that's enough. Before Lyra could reply, a rumble rolled through the ground. The warship released smaller crafts, dark shapes falling like meteors. Ethan grabbed her arm. We have to move. Now. They sprinted through the forest, the red glow chasing them. Every few seconds, a beam of energy split the sky behind them. The sound was deafening. Finally, they reached the edge of a clearing. There stood an old observatory, a rusted dome of metal half buried in vines. Ethan's heart jumped. We can use that. It still has a comms dish. Lyra nodded. If I connect the star key to its systems, I might be able to scramble their tracking network. But what? She hesitated. It will burn the star key. And me with it. Ethan stared at her, disbelief in his voice. You mean, you'll die? Lyra looked at the stars. I was never meant to live long. My purpose was to carry knowledge until it was used. That is how my kind end. He shook his head. No, not happening. We'll find another way. You don't understand, she whispered. There is no other way. Ethan's jaw tightened. You said you learned to think for yourself. Well, now you'll learn something else. Humans don't give up on people. Not even alien ones. For the first time, Lyra's lips curved into a soft smile. You are strange, Ethan Cole. He smiled back, though his eyes were tired. You're not the first to say that. They entered the observatory. Inside, dust floated like stars in the pale light of Lyra's skin. The telescope stood broken, but the communication panel still hummed faintly. Ethan wiped off the control board and powered it up with the portable battery from his toolkit. Still works, he muttered. Barely. Lyra knelt beside the console, her fingers glowing as she touched the circuits. Symbols appeared on the screen, alien, beautiful, like lines of light dancing in water. Your machines are simple, she said softly, but full of heart. He chuckled. That's humanity for you, messy, but it works. The panels began to flicker faster. The dome trembled slightly as energy filled the air. Lyra's voice grew faint. Once I start this, they'll know where we are. You'll have only minutes to escape. Ethan looked at her. And you? She gave a sad, peaceful smile. I'll finish what I started. He clenched his fists. I'm not leaving you. But before he could argue further, the floor shook violently. Outside, the sky turned crimson. The Varric were coming. Lyra placed her hand on his chest. If I fall, promise me one thing, she whispered. What? He said. Tell your people to never stop sending messages. Not to the stars, but to each other. That's what makes you strong. Ethan swallowed hard. You're not going to fall. Above them, a blinding light split the clouds. The warship was descending. The observatory's metal walls glowed with heat. Ethan reached for her hand. Then let's finish this together. And as the ground trembled beneath them, Lyra activated the star key. The room filled with swirling light, and the stars outside seemed to scream. The observatory shook like it was alive. The machines screamed as Lyra connected the star key to the old human systems. Blue light filled the dome, wrapping around her body like a storm of stars. Ethan stood close, shielding his face from the glare. Lyra, you'll burn yourself out. Her voice came out like an echo, distant and heavy. It's the only way. I must jam their network before they reach full orbit. He stepped forward. There's got to be another way. Let me help. But the console sparked violently. The lights flickered and Lyra fell back, trembling. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her glowing skin was dim, almost gray. It's too much, she whispered. This place isn't strong enough to hold the energy. The signal is failing. Ethan looked around the room, his engineer's mind already racing. He saw the damaged telescope, the broken power cells, the cracked solar panels. And then an idea came. Wild, dangerous human. Then we'll make it strong enough, he said. Lyra opened her eyes weakly. What are you doing? Building a miracle, Ethan replied, grabbing his backpack. He tore out wires, cables, batteries, anything that could feed power into the console. If we reroute the energy from the telescope's base, it'll focus the beam. We'll amplify your signal instead of overloading it. Lyra blinked slowly, as if she didn't understand how he could still be thinking clearly. You humans build hope from scrap, he smiled faintly. Yeah, it's kind of our thing. Outside, thunder rolled. The warship's engines were tearing the sky apart. The ground began to vibrate and dust rained down from the ceiling. Ethan worked fast. His hands moved on instinct, connecting, tightening, rerouting. Lyra watched him silent. Every spark of light from his tools reflected in her fading eyes. Finally, he stepped back. It's ready. But it's going to need something more, something alive. Alive? Lyra whispered. Yeah, Ethan said. Something that can guide the pulse. He looked at her. You, her face softened. Ethan, if I connect again, I might not survive. And if you don't, he said quietly, Earth won't. Lyra looked at him for a long time. In that moment, she saw what made humans different. The fire in their eyes, the refusal to surrender, the heart that burned even in darkness. Your world doesn't deserve what's coming, she said softly. Then help me stop it, he replied. She nodded. Together, they reconnected the star key. The dome began to hum again, deeper this time. The telescope came to life, turning upward on its old gears. The light in the observatory grew so bright it painted the forest outside in silver. Lyra took Ethan's hand. Once I start this, I will become part of it. Ethan tightened his grip. Then I'll bring you back. She smiled faintly. You don't even know what that means. Doesn't matter, he said. We humans don't let go easy. Her lips curved into a small, sad smile. That is why your kind is dangerous to the Varrock. You never stop trying. The floor trembled again. A beam of red light struck the ground outside, shaking the entire observatory. The warship had found them. Lyra looked at the sky. They're coming. I must begin now. Do it, Ethan said, standing beside her. The star key flared to life, filling the dome with waves of energy. Lyra's voice became a melody, words in a language older than stars. The telescope turned and a massive burst of blue light shot into the heavens. For a moment, the warship paused. Its red glow flickered. The entire sky seemed to ripple like time itself had frozen. Ethan watched, his chest tight. It's working! But then the lights began to overload. The power lines burst. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Lyra screamed, her body glowing too bright to look at. Lyra! Ethan shouted, rushing toward her. He grabbed the cable and ripped it free, breaking the connection. The light collapsed, leaving only silence. Lyra fell into his arms. Her skin was cold, her glow faint. He shook her gently. Hey, stay with me! Her voice was barely a whisper. The signal reached them. I changed the code. The Varrock network is confused. They'll think Earth is gone. Ethan felt relief wash over him, and fear. You did it. You saved us, her eyes glowed weakly. No, we did it. Then her head fell against his chest. The light inside her flickered once, then faded. Ethan sat there in the dark, holding her. The warship above slowly drifted away, its engines dimming, its direction lost. The world was safe, for now. He looked down at her still face, tears mixing with the dust on his cheeks. You said you were made to carry memories, he whispered. Then remember this, humans don't run. The observatory's systems crackled weakly. Ethan gently laid Lyra down, then picked up the star key. It was cold now, dull, lifeless. But as he held it, a tiny flicker of blue light pulsed in its center, faint but there. He smiled softly. You're still here, aren't you? Outside, dawn was breaking. The red glow of the warship had faded into the pale blue of morning. Ethan stood up, tucking the star key safely into his pocket. Okay, Lyra, he said quietly. Let's bring you home. And as the sun rose over the silent forest, one tired human began walking toward the ruins of a world that had just been saved by the most unlikely pair in the universe. The morning sun rose weak and pale over the mountains. The forest was silent again, but Ethan Cole knew it was not over. Above the horizon, a red shimmer moved like a wound in the sky. The Varrock warship was still there, circling, waiting, angry. Ethan stood outside the broken observatory, his clothes torn and his face covered in soot. He had been awake for hours, rebuilding, repairing, thinking. The star key rested in his palm, glowing faintly again. It pulsed like a heartbeat. I'm slow, steady, alive. Lyra, he whispered. I know you're still in there. The small crystal flickered as if answering him. It wasn't just data, it was her. He was sure of it. And then the radio on his belt crackled to life. A deep metallic voice filled the air. Human identified Ethan Cole. You interfere with Varric command. Surrender the star key or your planet will burn. Ethan lifted his head toward the sky. You'll have to come and take it, he said quietly. A red beam shot down from the clouds, striking the valley below. The shockwave knocked him to the ground. The warship was moving closer. The war wasn't coming. It was already here. He pushed himself up, coughing. All right, he muttered. Let's see what a human engineer can do. Inside the observatory, he began working like a man possessed. The power cells were half fried, but he rewired them into a portable launcher. He turned the old telescope base into a guided rail. Not a weapon of war, but one of human invention and stubbornness. This is for you, Lyra, he whispered. As the ground trembled beneath his feet, he carried the weapon outside. The sky had turned blood red. The Varric ship loomed above like a floating fortress. Smaller drones poured out from its belly, hundreds of them gliding through the air like mechanical insects. Ethan aimed the launcher and took a breath. If I miss this shot, Earth's done for. The star key's light pulsed faster. It was like a heartbeat or a signal. He stared at it. You're helping me, aren't you? The crystal flickered again, brighter this time. It began to hum softly. Ethan smiled. Then let's make them pay. He inserted the star key into the launcher. The weapon came alive, glowing with blue light that mixed with the morning mist. The drones dived. Red beams tore through the trees. Explosions filled the forest, but Ethan didn't move. He stood his ground, his eyes fixed on the ship above. Come on, he whispered. Closer. When the warship's shadow finally covered him, he pulled the trigger. The rail roared, releasing a beam of pure blue light that split the air like lightning. It hit the warship dead center. For a moment, the sky exploded in color, red, blue, and silver colliding like a storm of suns. Then came the silence. Ethan fell to one knee, exhausted. Smoke rose from the hills. Pieces of drones rained down like burning snow. But when he looked up, the warship was still there, damaged but alive. A deep rumble filled the air. The warship's front panels opened, revealing something inside, a massive orb of red energy. Lyra's voice echoed faintly from the star key. They are charging their main cannon. It will destroy the planet. Ethan gritted his teeth. Then we stop them here. He held the star key tightly. Lyra, if you can hear me, I need you now. The crystal flared suddenly. A bright column of light rose from his hand, stretching into the sky. The warship's red energy faltered. I'm here, Lyra's voice said, soft but strong. Her form began to take shape beside him, made of light and energy. She looked the same, silver skin, glowing eyes, but now she shone like a star. Ethan stared in disbelief. Lyra, you're alive? Not like before, she said gently. But enough to fight. She looked at the sky. If we merge my signal with your weapon, we can reverse their cannon's power. Will that kill you? Ethan asked. She smiled faintly. I'm not really alive anymore. But you are. That's enough, he hesitated, his hands trembling. I can't lose you again. Lyra touched his chest. You won't, not really. Before he could speak, she stepped into the beam. Her body dissolved into light that wrapped around the weapon. The star key blazed brighter than ever before. The warship's cannon charged, a red sphere growing in its center. The earth trembled. Ethan shouted, Now, Lyra! The launcher fired one last time. A blinding surge of blue energy mixed with Lyra's light. It shot straight into the heart of the ship. The sky became fire. The sound was deafening. Red and blue light clashed, twisting together until everything went white. Then, silence. The clouds parted. The warship was gone. Only drifting pieces of metal fell like ashes. Ethan dropped to his knees, breathing hard. The weapon was destroyed. The observatory was in ruins. But the world was safe. He looked at the star key. It was cracked now, its light fading. Lyra, he whispered. No answer, only a faint shimmer like starlight reflecting on water. He smiled weakly. You did it. You saved them. The wind blew softly through the valley. Somewhere far above, the stars looked a little brighter. Ethan stood, his body trembling but alive. The battle was over. Humanity had survived. Because one alien girl and one stubborn human refused to give up. As he walked back toward the smoking observatory, he whispered to the quiet morning sky, Rest now. Lyra, you showed me what it means to be human. The war was over. The skies above Earth were clear again. No red fire, no engines, no sound of death. For the first time in weeks, the stars looked calm, like they had forgotten the terror that passed through them. Ethan Cole stood alone on the hill where the old observatory once stood. It was nothing but twisted metal and ash now, but he didn't mind. The silence was comforting. The warship was gone. The drones were gone. Humanity had survived, and yet the world felt emptier. In his hand, Ethan still carried what was left of the star key. The crystal was cracked, its glow almost gone, but sometimes, just sometimes, it pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat buried deep within. He whispered, "You're still with me, aren't you, Lyra?" The wind moved softly through the grass, and for a moment it almost felt like an answer. A few days later, Ethan finally returned home. His cabin stood just as he left it, half burned at the edges, the windows broken from the blast waves. The forest around it was quiet, the air still thick with the smell of smoke. He stepped inside, brushing off dust from the doorway. His living room was covered in debris. His kitchen was the same. The same counter. The same mug that had started it all, world's tiredest engineer, still sitting where she had left it. He picked it up and smiled sadly. "Guess you never finished your coffee." For the first time in weeks, he sat down. The silence pressed around him, heavy but peaceful. The world didn't know what had really happened. The governments were calling it a meteor storm. They couldn't imagine that one human and one alien girl had stood between life and extinction. But Ethan didn't care if they believed him. He had seen it with his own eyes: courage, sacrifice, and a spark of something beyond human understanding. He looked out the window, the sky now painted in soft gold from the setting sun. "You'd like this," he whispered. Quiet, warm, full of light. Then he heard it, a soft hum, faint, familiar. At first he thought it was the wind, but it wasn't. It was coming from the kitchen. Ethan stood slowly, his heart starting to race. The hum grew stronger, a sound like distant singing mixed with electricity. The lights flickered once. He turned the corner and froze. She was standing there. Lyra, glowing faintly, her form made of soft light instead of flesh. Her silver blue hair flowed like water, her eyes shimmering with warmth. She looked the same, and yet not the same. Ethan's throat tightened. "Lyra?" Her voice was gentle, like a song carried on the breeze. "Coffee smells nice." He laughed softly, his eyes wet. "You remember that?" She smiled, tilting her head in that familiar way. "You humans remember everything. I learned that from you." He took a cautious step forward. "I thought you were gone. You burned yourself out saving us." Lyra touched her chest, the faint glow of the star key visible beneath her light. "Part of me did, but my essence was stored inside the key. When you carried it, I followed the signal home." Ethan's hands trembled as he reached out, stopping just before touching her. "Are you real? Or am I dreaming?" She looked at him softly. "Does it matter?" He smiled through tears. "No, not really." Lyra looked around the small cabin, her eyes full of quiet curiosity. "It feels different now. The air is clean again. The stars are calm. Your world is safe." He nodded slowly. "Thanks to you," she shook her head. "Thanks to us. You showed me what it means to care for something beyond yourself. My people forgot that long ago." For a long time, neither spoke. The world outside glowed with the orange light of evening, and the quiet hum of life returned to the forest. Finally, Lyra said softly, "Ethan, I cannot stay in this form for long. I belong to the stars now." He looked at her, pain in his eyes. "Then why come back?" She smiled faintly. "Because you taught me one last thing, to say goodbye properly." He wanted to speak, but no words came. Lyra stepped closer and placed her glowing hand over his heart. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "Now it's our turn to protect you." Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest, not just emotion, but energy, light. It filled him from the inside out, like the stars themselves were burning in his heart. Lyra stepped back, her form fading gently. "When you look at the night sky, don't think of the darkness. Think of the ones watching back, Lyra," he said, voice breaking. She smiled, that same soft, human-like smile she had once practiced awkwardly in his kitchen. "Goodbye, Ethan Cole of Earth." And then she was gone. Only the faint hum remained, fading slowly until there was silence once more. Ethan stood there for a long time, staring at the space where she had been. The room was still warm. The air still glowed faintly, as if the universe had left a trace of her behind. He looked down at the coffee mug in his hand and laughed quietly. Guess I'm not drinking alone anymore. Outside, the stars began to shine, brighter than ever before. One of them flickered twice, blue and silver. Ethan smiled. Yeah, I see you. He leaned back in his chair, watching the night settle over the world he had almost lost. Somewhere out there among the stars, an alien girl of light watched too. And for the first time, Earth wasn't alone.